Welcome back, fellow Rune Terrans. I thought it would be a good idea to have a look at Dr. Mundo's lore because he has got a recent in-game rework and a visual update as well. So, just going to go through, read his bio, read his story. You can read along on this video or you can also just listen. Yeah, so I'm going to read the little blurb first. Utterly mad, tragically homicidal, and horrifyingly purple, Dr. Mundo is what keeps many of Zorn's citizens indoors on particularly dark nights. Now a self-proclaimed physician, he was once a patient of Zorn's most infamous asylum. After curing the entire staff, Dr. Mundo established his practice in the empty wards that once treated him, and began mimicking the highly unethical procedures that he had so often experienced himself. With a full cabinet of medicines and zero medical knowledge, he now makes himself more monstrous with each injection and terrifies the hapless patients who wander near his office. Alright, now we're going to move on to the story. Dr. Mundo, the madman of Zorn. In the wards of Zorn's infamous asylum, a single monstrous figure roams the halls. His methods are bold, his bone saw is sharp, and his patients are terrified. But this man is no doctor at all, except in the fancy of his own mind. Though his true name has been lost to both time and memory, Dr. Mundo was once an enforcer for one of Zorn's most powerful chem barons. Known for his boisterous affability, he was remarkably good-natured for a man who made his living off physical intimidation. He was always quick, with a familiar nickname and a friendly clap on the back, and often blissfully unaware of the toes he was stepping on. It wasn't long before he had stepped firmly on the toes of his boss. Determined to make an example of his underling, the chem baron had him committed to Oswald Asylum, a place well known for its inhumane treatment and questionable cures. The baron watched with satisfaction as his enforcer was placed in restraints and dragged away to the padded confines of the asylum's most secure cell. As months went by, the enforcer suffered unspeakable horrors at the hands of his supposed caregivers. Experimental treatments were rendered without concern for the patient's well-being. Nerves were prodded, lobes were severed, and unproved medicines were administered in large quantities. The enforcer began to change, his large frame gaining more muscle by the day. His brain, however, suffered a far worse fate. As he lost all memory of his past life, the enforcer struggled to make sense of the cruel world around him. He looked down at his old restraining jacket. It almost resembled the white coats of the medical professionals that surrounded him. Misreading the words on his own uniform, he began to assume a new name and a new profession for himself. I must be a doctor too. I would do the voice, but I think it'll just sound silly, so I'm going to go ahead and just read it in my own voice. I must be a doctor too. Why else would I be in this wretched asylum, he reasoned, and all these other people must be my patients. At last, the day came when the chem baron arrived to discharge his enforcer from the asylum. To his surprise, there was no one to greet him in the lobby. The halls were empty and dead silent, save for the faint, incoherent babbling of a deranged patient in a room at the end of the hallway. The baron entered the room to a horrifying sight. Scattered across the floor were countless bodies, staff and patients alike, dismembered beyond recognition. Standing above them, a hulking, purple monstrosity belathered unintelligibly as a large blue tongue lolled out the side of its gaping mouth. Muscles bulged grotesquely beneath its undersized garments, and its fists tightened around the hand of a surgical saw. The baron turned pale as his gaze found the face of the monster and recognized it as his old enforcer. The enforcer, who recalled nothing of his old boss, saw only another patient in desperate need of treatment. The purple thing lumbered toward the chem baron, wagging his bone saw in anticipation. The baron drew his Chemtech pistol and fired. The shot tore through the looming mass in front of him, staggering the monster, but only for a brief moment. The hole in the creature's flesh quickly closed as new slabs of muscle rapidly regrew over the wound. The monster paused, eyed the baron quizzically, and uttered, "You sick? Need help?" Mimicking what he had seen performed countless times by the asylum's former practitioners, the enforcer threw the man on a nearby gurney, strapped his arms into the restraints, and prepared his instruments for surgery. The chem baron turned pale as he realized the grim fate that awaited him. The ensuing surgery, like so many before and after it, was not successful. The burgeoning doctor added to the remains of his latest patient to the pile on the floor. Though he was saddened, he could not save them. He knew he had done all he could. Besides, he would have other chances. Zorn was full of sick people, just waiting to be cured. With a smile returning to his face, he left the hospital and set out into the streets to find more patients. So that's his biography. Now we're going to move on to the short story, Do No Harm. It has been a while, Mundo thought, stroking the massive purple tongue that hung from his mouth like an executed criminal swinging from the gallows, since Mundo made a house call. He rolled out of his bed. A large wooden box filled with sharpened knives and rusty nails, brushed his teeth with a nail file, and ate breakfast. A cat. Mundo felt exuberant. He felt alive. Today was a fine day for practicing medicine. He spotted his first patient hawking shimmer drops just outside Ranker's limb maintenance. The man limped around in a circle, shouting at everyone within arm's length about how shimmer drops would make their eyes roll into the back of their heads, and how if they didn't buy some right now, right this second, then they were damn idiots. And did you just give him a condescending look? Because he'll kill you, and your family, and your family's family. Mundo took out his notepad, a tool he often used to mark down observations about his patients, both past and present. The notepad was large, yellow, and imaginary. Patient exhibits signs of mania. Mundo would have written if he hadn't been tracing random squiggles in the air with a meaty finger. Possible infection of the nervous system via cranial virus. He might have inscribed if he were capable of such multi-syllabic thought. Mundo cure head and face area good, he said to himself. Rank was just about to pick up his shimmer drops and head home for the night. He needed to get new shoes. These ones rubbed his feet raw when he walked, and at the end of a long day's work, he hadn't earned the soft leather of grey eels. As Rank was thinking this, a huge purple monster jumped out of the shadows and yelled, "Mundo has results of your blood work." Mundo left his patient more or less as he found him, save for a few limbs, and took to Commercia Fantastica, a market specializing primarily in gearwork toys. Though most of the shops were closed, Mundo spied a lone Zornite teetering to and fro as he stumbled down the path. The Zornite sang a song of Piltovan beauty, and the shy boy from the Undercity who loved her, except he seemed to have forgotten most of the words apart from big ol' eyes and gave it to her. An empty bottle dangled from his hand, and he looked as if he hadn't had a bath in months. Was this man afflicted by the same disease that had ravaged the shimmer drop dealer? Was this a virus, an epidemic in the making? Mundo had to act fast. This was clearly a man in need of medical attention. "Take 2 of these and talk to Mundo in the morning," the purple monstrosity said as he tossed a meat cleaver into the drunk's back. Mundo descended into Zorn's sump level. If there was a virus going around, chances were it originated here. There must be a patient 0 somewhere. If he could just cure the first sufferer of this mystery disease, Mundo knew he could cure the rest of Zorn. But how was Mundo to find one specific patient in the sprawl of the sump level? What steps would he take to isolate, quarantine, and fix this most suffering of Zornites? How would he... Mundo heard something. Footsteps, and a rhythmic clang of metal against metal. He followed the noise as carefully and quietly as he could. Wouldn't want to spook the patient into running away and infecting even more people. And found exactly what he was looking for. A young boy, no older than 15, with a shock of white hair and a large metal sword-looking thing in his hand. He had some sort of hourglass tattooed onto his face. Maybe a warning, a symbol that he was not to be approached under any circumstances. Mundo knew he'd found him, patient 0. It would be a complex operation, requiring skill, planning, careful eye, and "you might feel a little sting," the creature said, leaping out, his enormous purple form hurtling through the air, massive cleaver in hand, tongue flapping in the wind. The boy was surprised, but not unprepared. Anybody hanging out in the sump knew to be ready for trouble at a moment's notice, and the kid had plenty of time to prepare. Nothing but time, in fact. No 2 ways about it. This was a troublesome patient. He refused to answer Mundo's questions about his medical history, and repeatedly evaded Mundo's attempts to make him take his medication. He repeated himself over and over again, perhaps suffering from a case of physical amnesia, and had no respect for Dr. Mundo's authority. The 2 scuffled over the child's sickness for what felt like hours. Mundo made what he thought were very salient points about the merits of treatment, but the child constantly evaded Mundo's attempts to help him. Mundo grew tired of arguing with the boy. He mustered up one final attempt at treatment, wielding his precision scalpel with the artistry of a Damascene duelist. The words of his medical vows, "Mundo fix all things. Mundo do medicine very hard," ran through his head again and again. His desire to cure this child filled him with purpose and determination. He swung with all his might. The treatment was a success, but then, somehow, the treatment reversed itself. Whatever good Mundo had accomplished in his last attempt at a cure was suddenly undone. To Mundo's utter confusion, the child scurried away, utterly uncured. Mundo screamed in irritation. "Why can't Mundo save them all?" he screamed to the sky. Not every operation was a success. Mundo would be the first to admit that. Still, Mundo tried to focus on the positive. Apart from this most recent patient, Mundo had helped an awful lot of people. He'd done a full day's work, and now it was time to rest. As the sun came up, Mundo retired home and tucked himself into bed. Who knew what tomorrow might bring? Another patient to help, another epidemic to stop. A doctor's work was never done. Thank you for listening. If you made it all the way through that reading, then I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to keep going through the characters, reading them like this, because I feel like Runeterra has a deep lore. Riot's done a great job, and not everyone knows about it, knows how deep it goes, all the stories that they have. They have plenty of comics as well, and I just want to make these videos to make it a bit more accessible. So maybe you can listen to this while you're playing a game or something, so you don't have to necessarily read it. You could just listen to it. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you Runeterrans later. Bye.